right. Good evening, East New York. Let's hear it. Come on. Everyone, thank you for coming tonight. So I'd like to introduce your council member, Rafael Espinal. And your mayor, Bill de Blasio. All right, everyone, before we hear from some of our special guests, I'd like to invite Joseph Perez to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joseph. All right, so I'd like to acknowledge some of our guests here today. First of all, I'd like to thank Wanda Holt, principal of PS 345, for helping us put on this great show. Thank you, Ms. Holt. Thank you so much. And our co-sponsors, the Coalition for Community Advancement and Progress for East New York, Cypress Hills. Yeah. The George Walker Coalition, Selma Davis and Carolyn Walker Diallo. Community Board 5, A.T. Mitchell. A.T.'s right here somewhere. All right. The 75th Precinct Council, and Mr. Winchester Keys. Community Board 16, Viola Walker, District Manager, and Janice Morgan, Chair. Thank you so much. And Nikki Lucas with the People First Democratic Club. So before we start, I just want to note that everyone should have received a card before you came in. We're going to take as many questions as we can tonight, but in case we don't get to your question, we will collect your card and respond very quickly to you, all right? So everyone should fill out their question card. So I'd like to invite one of our guests, State Senator Martin DeLon, to come up and offer greetings.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Mr. Mayor, welcome to the 18th Senatorial District. Thank you very much for coming out. But to all of my constituents, I'm very happy that you're here participating on behalf of Cypress Hills, East New York. And I want to commend the work that Cypress Hills Coalition for Advancement and our councilmen did on changing this plan, and I think making it a better plan and a plan that will be perhaps a model for future rezonings throughout the city of New York. But Mr. Mayor, I also want to thank you for listening to the community and responding and ensuring that there's more affordable housing in this plan. With that said, I really want to listen to everyone and what they have to say. Thank you very much, and good evening to all.
Thank you. Your State Senator, Martin DeLon. And next up, I'd like to invite the State Senator from the district just next door, Roxanne Prasad.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I am just here because this is an important evening, and I want to make sure everyone is receiving the information that they should receive, that their questions are being answered, and they leave here satisfied. So, yes, satisfied. Everyone's not going to be completely satisfied, but we're here to listen and to take notes and to ensure that going forward, your needs are met. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, State Senator. And lastly, I'd like to introduce, once again, your council member and the moderator for this evening, Councilmember Espinal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I really want to thank everyone from the community for being here today, and also the sponsoring organizations, members of CB5, the 75th Precinct Community Council, the George Walker Community Council, the Coalition for Community Advancement. We have Dharma Diaz and Michelle Nugebauer here, who've done a lot of work on behalf of East New York and Cypress Hills. an organization that I had the pleasure to work with throughout the entire process. So thank you for all your work. I also want to thank the commissioners, the elected officials who are here, and of course our mayor, Bill de Blasio, who I know has been looking forward to talking to us for a very long time. And this is something we've been working on for months, and I'm glad that we finally found the time to make it happen. I also want to acknowledge that we have a staff person from Assemblyman Eric DeLon's office, Jackie Reyes, who's here. He couldn't join us. While the mayor is in charge of the entire city, he is from Brooklyn, and I believe that he carries Brooklyn in his heart. I don't think any other administration would have cared so much about our neighborhood as this mayor has. He has pledged to fight income inequality from the start, and he has kept his promise, focusing on getting resources to the neighborhoods that have long been overlooked by other administrations like East New York. Now, that's not to say that we don't have our disagreements this year. We had some disagreements, especially through this process. And I remember him calling me at some point and saying, hey, Ralph, this list is a little too long. I'm like, Mayor, I'm the councilman. You understand how it is. You were the councilman of a community once. And he got that. And that's what makes him unique. He was a councilman. He represented Brooklyn, knew what neighborhoods needed the resources, and he delivered. The reality of New York, and especially Brooklyn, is that today we have become victim of our own success. People are staying here longer. People are buying homes. People are moving here in record numbers. People are opening businesses, putting pressures on our rental market. And the challenge we have is not how to act, but if we should act. As we all know by now, inaction leaves to these decisions up to the private sector, and we have seen what that looks like. If you look at Bushwick, where past administrations didn't intervene, gentrification has really wiped out the old Bushwick neighborhood. A lot of residents there have moved here because the rents here are much more affordable than there. The mayor believes that if we took action here, we can put a stop to gentrification. We could put the brakes to gentrification. And I believe that we did just that. I'm here to tell you that thanks to all the work that we've done, we were able to bring a lot more money in our community for programs and services to support our small homeowners and mom and pop businesses. We have a jobs plan that invests in our commercial corridors and brings $16 million to our industrial business zone. We have $250 million that is coming to our neighborhood to address our crumbling infrastructure. And we have a plan to build and preserve affordable housing at the deepest levels the city has ever seen, right here in East New York. I recognize there's a lot more to be done to make this plan a reality, and I'll be holding myself and the mayor accountable to ensuring that we do what we said from the start. And I hope that the mayor continues to visit us and check up on the progress. In a couple of years, we will be able to see the affordable housing we have built together, the housing we have preserved, the schools we have improved, and the middle-class jobs we have created. I am proud of this plan, and I'm proud to be here tonight with the mayor. So with that, I'll turn it over, Mr. Mayor.
Is it working? Yay. It's important in life to turn on the microphone first. That's what I've learned. I want to thank Councilman Espinal for giving me this chance to join with you, have a conversation about this community, about what we're doing for the future of this community, about what you need, what your concerns are. Perfectly good place to voice your doubts, to voice your critiques, because we want to hear them and we want to respond to them. But I want to talk about what the councilman did, but I also want to just take a moment to thank our two representatives here who fight for us in Albany. I want to tell you their job is not easy up there. Albany is a place that is often very unconcerned with the needs of the people of New York City. And it has been my experience that these two senators do not give in easily and fight for the neighborhoods, and fight for our fair share from Albany. It is thankless work often, but we need them. And when there are some victories from Albany, they often are two of the people that help us get them. So, Senators, thank you very, very much for all you do. So, the councilman talked about the list that he and I discussed. And he accurately portrayed the conversation. He had a very, very long and ambitious list of things he wanted for the community. Some of them could be said to be unprecedented in the context of rezoning anywhere in the city. And I have to tell you, I think anyone who knows him knows he is a good guy, a reasonable guy, but he's also very resolute. So we had a series of exchanges. They were always polite, but my job was to try and figure out what was fair, and his job was to push for more and more, and he got a lot in the end. I'm going to go over with you just how much it is and what I think it's going to mean for the future of the people of this neighborhood. But I will tell you that Councilman Espinal was tenacious, he was focused, he always was on top of his information, he was very forceful. And there's some things in this rezoning that people will tell you are some of the best that have ever been in any rezoning, and the credit for that goes to your councilman. Let's thank him. And I want to just give you a quick vision of what this rezoning has meant and what this plan means. And then I look forward to opening it up to as many people as we get a chance to hear from tonight. Before I do, just want to give a special thank you to Joseph Perez, who led us. Thank you very much, Joseph, leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. A promising young man. We thank you for that. So, Councilman said it was a very extensive process. There were meetings, many meetings in the community. There were some meetings where community folks came into City Hall. It was really, to me, a very thoughtful, a very careful process where people expressed themselves and helped everyone involved to understand what was needed. And I should take this moment also to say I didn't remember to acknowledge properly the public servants who are here. So I'm going to say something quick. Some of them are familiar with what I say at this portion of the proceeding. So we have here the leaders of all of the police precincts who protect this community. Let's give them a round of applause. We thank them all. They have done extraordinary work. I'll give you a little glimpse in a moment of just how amazing their work has been, particularly this year. But you also have the heads of some of the most important agencies in the city government here. They're here, they're gonna help answer some of the questions, but I always say that when you have a town hall meeting, you have all of the leadership of the city government, people who, their agencies have a huge impact on everyone's lives in this room. At the end of the meeting, if you have any concern, whether it's about education or sanitation or whatever it is, come up and talk to the person who's in charge right here. And this meeting will go on for a few hours, so it will be well into the evening, but I always say they are such dedicated public servants. They have nowhere to go tonight. They will be here all night if you want them to be. They are just here to talk to you. So take advantage of that opportunity, please. And let's give them all a round of applause. So to begin with, this plan for East New York and this rezoning benefited from a policy that is brand new in this city. It is the most progressive affordable housing policy in this country, in any big city. And we said simply that when we change a community through rezoning, we're requiring developers to create affordable housing. That's why it's called mandatory inclusionary housing. Nothing like this ever existed in this city where if you're going to develop, you had to create affordable housing. We changed the rules of the game. Councilman played a leading role in achieving that reform. What does that mean? It means over the life of this plan, we expect to create 3,000 affordable apartments for the families of this community. 3,000 new affordable apartments. 1,200 of which will be begun in the next 2 years already. There's going to be real concern tonight about whether the plan reaches every kind of income level in the community. And when it comes to affordable housing, everything we say tonight is a beginning. We want to go even farther. We want to reach even deeper. But I can tell you, of those 3,000 affordable apartments, 40% of them will be for the lowest income families, people making as low as $20,000 a year. So 40% are for the lowest income families. We also have been preserving apartments, and it's very important to understand this is a huge piece of our affordable housing plan. When I say preserving, I mean taking an apartment with a family in it, or fixing up a building and bringing families into an existing building and keeping it affordable for decades to come, subsidizing it and making sure it stays affordable. People always say to me, what is affordable? What's the definition of affordable? One person's idea of affordable could be different from another person's idea of affordable. When we preserve those apartments, when we keep people in their apartment, the rule is very simple. You pay a third of your income in rent, period. Whatever your income is. No matter how high, how low, you pay a third of your income for your rent. That is our definition of affordability when we preserve the housing in place. We've already preserved 265 apartments in East New York just in the last 2.5 years. We expect to do a grand total of about 1,000 in the course of the next 8 years. So over the course of a decade, 1,000 preserved apartments, all affordable, on top of the 3,000 new we will build. And it's important to recognize that those are just pieces of what we're doing for affordable housing. We want to build new affordable housing. We want to preserve apartments that are affordable and need to stay affordable. We want to protect the apartments in the ultimate affordable housing in this city, and that is NYCHA, our public housing. We want to protect public housing, keep it public, never privatized, and put it on a strong footing for the future. That's 400,000 people in our city. Then let's talk about the 2 million or so New Yorkers who live in rent-stabilized housing. If you live in rent-stabilized housing, you just got a rent freeze for the second time in 2 years. And finally, we want to keep people in affordable housing and not have them be harassed by bad landlords. And I always say, I think most landlords abide by the law, do the right thing, but there are some bad landlords, there are some unscrupulous landlords. Some harass their tenants, some overcharge their tenants, some evict their tenants illegally. It used to be that the tenants often had no recourse, no place to turn, no way to get a lawyer. Now we put $62 million into providing free legal services to tenants to stop them from being evicted. $62 million. You know what that has done already? The number of evictions has gone down 24% in the last 2 years in this city. In this council district, just this year already, 34 families have been saved from eviction because they had a free lawyer from the city. And our team is out there literally knocking on doors of people around the neighborhood to find out if anyone needs those free legal services. And I want to emphasize to all of the community organizations, the community board, the clergy, anyone who's here who's talking to the members of the community, if anyone says, I'm being harassed by my landlord, I'm being forced out of my apartment, we want to get them a lawyer. And all they have to do is call 311. If we find that it is a legal violation, we will provide them a lawyer for free. And I need your help spreading that word. Now, in the plan that was agreed on with the councilman and the city council, there was a lot of concern about other needs of the community at the same time. Councilman made a very powerful case that this community had taken on a big share of some of the burdens that the city has to deal with. We have a whole host of social service and other needs that we have to address. The councilman fought hard to make sure things were fairly distributed. So as part of our plan, there are 3 shelters that have been in this community that will be closing, 2 by this summer, 1 by next summer. And in one of those, we want to turn it into permanent affordable housing, supportive housing for people in need. We also have this extraordinary effort called Home Base. That's part of helping people who might be facing eviction. It's part of helping make sure people don't end up in shelter, literally preventing people from ending up in shelter. There's already a Home Base office in East New York, served already 2,000 people who needed help with their housing situation. A second site is opening in September at 560 Livonia Avenue, so people from this community can go and get help if their housing is threatened, whether it's a subsidy, legal assistance, or other measures to help people stay in their housing. Right there, you would say, if you've seen all the things that the city has done over the last few decades, you'd say that's a pretty extensive and extraordinary plan, but the councilman fought for a number of other elements in this plan. There will be a 1,000-seat new school at Dinsmore Place and Chestnut Street. There's going to be a community center for teenagers that will be opening next fall. There's $36 million to renovate parks and playgrounds. And we want to do all this as quickly as humanly possible, including City Line Park and Highland Park Lower Playground and Callahan Kelly Playground. We're going to be opening up school playgrounds for longer hours. We're going to be putting in new equipment. There's also $17 million to do capital improvements in 27 schools in this community. This school got $1 million right here. So I'll conclude one more point, that the councilman is very concerned about jobs too as part of this plan. So a lot of resources are being put into modernizing and upgrading the East New York industrial building, and to make sure that the industrial business zone can be modern and strong and protect the 250 businesses and 3,000 jobs there. And our hope is to add thousands more jobs, because we're going to modernize that site and make it better for businesses. So that will benefit the people of the community. And in September also, the new East New York Workforce One Center will open at 2619 Atlantic Avenue. That's a place people can go to get jobs. Last thing I want to say before we open it up to everyone. I mentioned the extraordinary work the NYPD has done. And this has been a very tough week or two in America. A tough time, and we've been doing a lot of mourning and a lot of reflecting. And we have a lot to do to bring police and community closer together. The precincts represented here, the 7-3, the 7-5, the 8-3, and PSA 2. I've talked to the precinct commanders. They believe in neighborhood policing. They believe in developing a real close and communicative relationship between police and community. There are things happening now with neighborhood policing, with the retraining of our police force, teaching our police force how to de-escalate and have a different and closer community relationship. There are things happening now that I think are going to make very big changes in this city. I've said all along, we can have safety and respect, safety and fairness at the same time. There's no contradiction. I want to give you one statistic before I tell you what these guys have done. One statistic that's very powerful. In the year 2011, under the previous administration, there were 700,000 stops, 700,000 stop and frisks in 1 year. If you cut that in half and talk about half a year, it would have been 350,000. Everyone, I think, knows that the vast majority of those stopped were young men of color, and the overwhelming majority were innocent in every way, shape, and form. No charges, no summons, no nothing. And it wasn't good for the community and the relationship with the police, and it didn't make us safer. Earlier in the week, I sat with Commissioner Bratt, and he went over the statistics for this year. The first half of this year in New York City, we have had the lowest number of shootings of the first half of any year in the history of New York City. The lowest number of robberies, the lowest number of car thefts. Something very big is happening. We saw a 20% increase in gun seizures by the NYPD, getting guns off the streets of our communities. Which means the men and women of the NYPD are doing an extraordinary job, and it means their community allies and partners are helping them do it. Remember what I said about 2011? For the first half of the year, roughly 350,000 stops, and the statistics for crime that year were definitely worse than what we're achieving this year. We're safer this year. We're better off this year than we were 5 years ago. 350,000 stops. You know how many stops there were in the first 6 months of this year, citywide, New York City? 8,000 for the whole city. And we are safer at the same time. And to thank these leaders and all the men and women that they lead. Examples. In the 7-5 precinct, shootings are down 32%. 32% since last year. 7-3 precinct down 23%. PSA 2's down 5%. They're doing good, but want to go even farther, but they're doing good. And then, listen to this, in the 8-3, burglaries down 37%. These are amazing statistics. So I'll conclude with that. There's a lot we got to do for the community. There's a lot we have to do to implement this plan, but I want to finish where the councilman left off. I'm here because I wanted you to hear from me what this plan is. I wanted to look you in the eye and tell you what my commitment to the community is. I wanted to tell you that we need these things we're committing to do to happen because we want them to reach the people of this community. That I will be coming back, not just for the celebrations, but to hear how it's going and to make sure things are on track. And I want to thank you all, everyone in this room, because you're here because you care about the community. You're here because you are trying to make the community better. You're here through thick and thin. You've been here through tough times and better times. But the common link, everyone in this room, is you are working hard for a better neighborhood, and we will be there side by side with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're going to open up for questions. We're only taking one question per person, and I'm asking that we keep those questions for 2 minutes or below. So if you have a question, raise your hand.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Vincent Riggins. I am Chair of Public Safety for Community Board 5. So we want to welcome you to East New York, and we thank you for coming out. One of the things I just want to mention briefly, short, one is that I did support you on your first election. I even donated money to your campaign. But I truthfully got to say, I don't know if I'm going to do that again this time. But anyway, let me just deal with public safety. In October 2015, this community board submitted a resolution unanimously against stop, search, and frisk, broken windows form of policing. And we also demanded 50% of the revenue that you guys are taking out of this economically depressed community via summonses and ticketing to be returned to this community under the discretion of the community board. Now, I did send a resolution. Did you ever see it?
I did not see that resolution. I will not pretend to tell you I have. I have not seen it.
Okay, I'm going to send you another copy to your office on tomorrow, and then I'll call you. I got your cell phone number. No, I don't have your cell phone number. But anyway, thank you. That was my question and my statement. I'm going to leave it right there. But I haven't made a decision yet on who I'm going to support, so hopefully you'll be a little bit more aggressive in East New York because we got a lot of good ideas in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's a statement, not a question. I would say I think what I just laid out is an example of investments coming to this community. I mean, honestly, to be straightforward with you, we are not going to separate revenue streams in the city and work them through a different way. We believe what we're doing now is about getting resources where they're needed. And if you look at what's being devoted to East New York in this rezoning, it's an immense amount of resources. And we're going to go beyond that over time. So I feel good about the level of investment. I also feel good about the changes I just delineated that we've made in the NYPD, and I've only talked about some of them. There are many more. So this is not a context for people to decide who they're voting for next year. There'll be plenty of time to sort that out. This is about serving the community, and the point I want to make is I think everything we just delineated about our plan shows a level of investment in East New York. If someone can show me another time when there was this level of investment in East New York by the city of New York, and I want to, you know, you've respectfully challenged me, so I'm going to respectfully challenge you back. Show me a time when the city of New York focused this way on investing in East New York. I'd be happy to put our plan up against any plan of any previous administration.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Michelle Neugebauer. I run the Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, and we were part of a community coalition, the Coalition for Community Advancement, that fought long and hard on the rezoning. And our biggest concern remains the depth of affordability of the housing that's going to be built. It simply doesn't match the 1/3 of East New Yorkers that earn under 30% of AMI. So when you add in the market rate units, what you get from MIH and what you get from the HPD finance unit is really a smidgen of the total units that are going to be built for the lowest third in terms of income of the neighborhood. So I'm asking you to look, like, what's on the horizon? Is there going to be a new financing program that HPD may put out that will more deeply subsidize for the lowest, the poorest? Because I'm just afraid that if that affordability doesn't match the incomes of the people in the neighborhood now, we're just going to be sending more people to the homelessness system. So what's the vision?
Well, I appreciate that question. And I want that question because I really think it's important that people hear directly what our vision is. I think it's been filtered, you know, like the media and everything else has their own filters. I want you to hear directly, and I want you to ask the questions you have about it. Carl Weisbrod is here, the chair of the City Planning Commission. So I'm going to start, and Carl, if you think there's anything you'd like to add, please jump in. But first of all, I tried to say a moment ago, affordability is about this plan, yes, but it's about everything else we're doing as well. The combination of building more affordable housing, preserving and subsidizing a lot of the affordable housing we have, protecting our public housing, giving fairness to the 2 million New Yorkers, and obviously people in this community amongst them, who live in rent-stabilized housing. Again, I just want to put a point on that. The 2 rent freezes in a row, that never happened once, let alone 2 years in a row in the history of New York City. This is an example of doing things differently, and the legal services to stop eviction. So, to Michelle's point, if we didn't do all those things at once, there would be a lot of vulnerabilities going unaddressed. And what we're trying to do is look at the whole picture of affordability and hit all the bases. Because, for example, if you stop illegal evictions and keep people in affordable housing, right there, you not only help that family, you keep that housing affordable for the longer term. If you help rent-stabilized folks to have a fair rent, that helps them stay in their home. It's all connects. The almost 40%, as I said, of everything new that's being built is for folks in the lowest income bracket. That's how this plan works. Almost 40% of the plan. On top of that, when we preserve the apartments, that 1,000 apartments I mentioned that we're going to be preserving, you pay 1/3 of your income. Now, to Michelle's point, if your income is very, very low, you pay 1/3 of that if you're in one of those preserved units. So the idea is to get all these pieces firing on all their cylinders. And yes, to Michelle's point, yes, of course, we're looking to do even higher numbers of apartments, and we want to do even deeper affordability. This is what we've committed to. This is what we've guaranteed, but we obviously are going to be looking for every opportunity to go deeper. At the same time, consider the alternative, and this is something I really want people to hear, because I think there's been a bit of a misrepresentation of what's happening in this city. And I always say, look no farther than Bushwick. Bushwick has had immense gentrification pressures. Bushwick has not had a rezoning. And what happened? Huge amounts of displacement. If there's anyone in this room who wants to tell me there has not been a huge amount of displacement in Bushwick, I want to meet that person. I think there's been a huge amount of displacement. I think there has been not a single affordable unit created because there was a plan for that community. The previous administration never rezoned it. So there's been no plan for affordable housing, no new affordable housing created because there was a plan, no capital investments of the type that the councilman secured for this community. A lot of people have said, and I understand where it comes from, they say, oh, rezoning concerns us because they equate it with new development and gentrification and displacement. My message, my blunt and honest message to people in New York City is, and I'm not happy to tell you this, but I think it's fair to say it's happening. It's happening because the world is changing. It's happening because of market forces. It's happening because of growing population in this city. I choose not to look away from that. We could leave it. We could leave neighborhoods be the way they are, and people would be displaced without getting any compensating involvement or intervention by the government. When we intervene, and this plan is a great example of that intervention, I am not going to tell you it is perfect. I am not going to tell you it stops all the displacement or all the gentrification. I'm not here to tell you that. I am going to tell you that if the government is on the playing field, creating some fairness and equity, guaranteeing the rights of the people more, guaranteeing the creation of affordable housing, stopping illegal evictions, all those things add up and protect lots of families in this community at the incomes that people earn in this community. That is the vision. We believe this is the best strategy we have. Now, one more point I want to make, and then we'll keep going to others. I think people in this city, I don't blame them, they look at the fancy skyscrapers and luxury buildings and condo buildings, and they have, and I have it too. I went by a building in Manhattan the other day, and I had the reaction I bet a lot of people in this room have when I saw on the scaffolding outside the construction site said, you know, beautiful floor-through units starting at $6 million. And I looked at that and I said, I really don't know why they have to show us that. You know, if that's the way it is for some people, I'm not necessarily thrilled about that, but you don't have to sort of put it in our faces. But we're in a free enterprise system which has its challenges, to say the least. I have my critique. But I think people look at those luxury building sites, those condo sites, and they say, why doesn't the city just stop it? Why doesn't the city just ban it? Why doesn't the city just turn it into affordable housing? Because our laws do not allow us to. That's not the law of this city, state, or country. It's just not. And again, I could tell you I have a critique of our laws and our legal system and our approach, and I'm trying to do what I can do in the here and now with the tools we have right now. But if we're being real about the problem, private sector development exists. It's not going away anytime soon. It's not all bad, just like gentrification is not all bad. But if this is the reality we're facing, my argument is the government has to play the most aggressive role we can and put the most resources into affordability. And that's what this plan represents. That's our strategy.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, Raphael Espinal, our councilman. My name is Harold Green. I'm a community resident and a homeowner. I'd like to ask, is the city committed to $12 million for basement conversions and other small home preservation measures? Was this money included in the FY17 budget? And if so, what's it called so that the homeowners can have access to these funds?
I'll handle that one because it's something that I was able to push with the help with the coalition. We looked at what gentrification does, and one of the things it does is not only push tenants, but it pushes homeowners out of their communities because they're underwater in their mortgages. They try to find a quick buck and sell their home so that they can get out of debt. And we believe that if we can find a way to legalize basement apartments in Cypress Hills and in East New York, that homeowners can charge rent for that basement, avoid getting fined by the city, and that'll in turn help them pay their mortgages, keep them in their home, and they won't feel pressured to sell their home. So we were able to secure $12 million in this plan to create a working group that the HPD would be part of, and all the city agencies that are in charge of the housing codes and building codes, and also the coalition will have a seat at the table, and we'll come up with a plan and see whether it's feasible to actually convert these basements in a way where it's safe, or in a way where the homeowners can rent them out. And our hope is that that $12 million will be used to help them reconfigure their basements so they can go up to code. I'm not sure if it was outlined in this year's budget, but I do know there was a commitment that anything that was committed, HPD.
No, it's in this year's budget. Which fiscal year?
It's committed dollars.
Okay, it'll be in next year's budget. It's not in the 17, it will be in the 18 budget.
That's the question. Right behind you.
Hi, thank you. I don't live in this community, but I service a lot of young people that live in this community. And you talked a lot about the immense amount of resources that you're putting into this community. And that's wonderful, and I applaud you guys, and I know it's not easy, but immense compared to what? Like, so for example, you referenced $36 million in renovations for parks here, when I know that there's a $100 million offer for the waterfront park in Williamsburg, not counting all the renovations that have to be done on that park. So $36 million, but compared to what? So when we talk about these things and we talk about equity, I think we need to be thinking holistically and not feel like, oh, wow, we got $36 million, because other people are getting way more. When we spend $300 million on waste infrastructure that's a failing, non-sustainable program on the backs of people in North Brooklyn, that we hold 40% of all of New York City's industrial waste, that's an equity problem, right? And then when we want to talk about these police and youth relations and how do we improve the community, I must say that the police
we have to
department...
limit to one question, so
sure.
which
But I want to ask about equity. So
Okay.
the police department is doing their part. I work very closely with Chief Madry. We run an alternative to suspension program, which you put zero tolerance policy in place. You said no more of that. We don't want to do that anymore. But there were no resources to follow up for the kids that were experiencing these challenges in school. Not challenge kids, but challenges of these students. So where's the equity in our schools, in our parks, in all of that? It's an equity question.
Okay.
And we could do affordable housing, but we need to be,
Thank you.
how do people fill out that application?
Okay.
Right? That's not an easy application. to fill out.
Respectfully, I know you're speaking from a place of honesty and passion, but really, if it's going to be one topic to a person so many people get to speak, we got to honor that. So on the question of the park, I respect the question, but I don't think it's accurate. What's happening with that park in Williamsburg is buying brand new land and making it into a park. It's something that was committed to that community in the previous administration as part of a rezoning just like this, to create land for a park brand new. That is a different question than rehabbing a park that already exists. So the $36 million is the money actually needed to fix the parks we're talking about here. But that is one of many. We would happily do the math and add up what all of these things cost, all the subsidizing of the affordable housing, all the capital improvements to the parks, what a 1,000-seat school costs. I'm not here to say there isn't more need. There is more need. I'm here to say we are providing a huge number of things at one time for one neighborhood, and that doesn't usually happen for one neighborhood. That is just a fact that a rezoning. And I know it's been, again, a very intense process, a lot of pushes and pulls, but a rezoning allows you at one time to achieve a host of things for the community, all of which cost money, and we are very happy to make those investments.
Jahangir? And
Mr. Mayor, welcome to East New York. My name is Dr. Jahangir Kabir. I'm the parliamentarian at Community Board 5. Okay.
You have a good, strong voice. It's working.
All right. I just want to make sure it works.
It's definitely working.
So I'm the parliamentarian at the Community Board 5. I also represent Baitul Mamur Masjid and Community Center, which is a center for the Muslim community in East New York. So thank you for coming. Welcome to our neighborhood. I have a very simple question, very, very simple question. Our council member talked about keeping homeowner afloat. So what happened is, because of this rezoning, the home prices are going up. Would you agree with that? It's going up, which is a good thing for a homeowner. But it's not so good when you get your tax bill, real estate tax bill. Your real estate tax bill also going up. So what's your plan to control this real estate tax in East New York? Is there relief for us? I'm also a homeowner, and it's really getting too much.
Thank you.
So I am a homeowner in Brooklyn too. I get property tax bill, I get water bill, the whole thing. And I would say this. There's two parts to the answer. The first is, I've said throughout the administration, and we've continued it in this budget, and we will continue it. Everything we're doing in terms of our budget guarantees that we will not raise property tax rates. And that's a big deal because in the last 15 years, 2 times there were property tax rates that went up. Not assessments. You're right. Assessments, if your assessment goes up, that hits you too. But on top of that, in the last 15 years, 2 times in the city, the rate for everyone went up. We have made clear over now the last 3 budgets, we will not allow that. And we're making a priority to protect homeowners by not allowing the property tax rate to go up. 2, for the water bills, which for years homeowners paid and did not know, they were paying towards things that weren't water. The water bill had a hidden tax in it. This year, for the very first time, we ended that hidden tax. And we said we will give every homeowner, 660,000 homeowners in New York City, a credit to give them back the money that they would have had to pay this year in that hidden tax. There's just one catch, and I want you to hear this catch, because to use an official government term, you should be pissed off that the landlord lobby, the Rent Stabilization Association, has blocked us in court from giving a water bill credit to 660,000 homeowners, including you. So if you don't like that, you might want to make your views heard to the Rent Stabilization Association. But that's another way we want to give relief. Provide money back this year and then not take it in the following years. On the bigger question of property tax, I've said publicly, we're going to have to do a major reform effort. I'm going to be very straightforward, take years because it's exceedingly complex. The current system is uneven. It is not transparent enough. There's a lot that needs to be fixed, but it's going to be a big, complicated issue. It will have to involve legislation in Albany. We will do that, but it will not happen for this year.
Thank you. Pastor?
Hello? Pastor should know how to use a mic, right? Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking about the plan, I think the reality on the ground for us has been the rezoning has accelerated speculation. And so north of Atlantic Avenue, because of the inaccessibility of commercial financing, if you're not a cash developer, they've eaten up all the inventory. I don't know about south of Atlantic so much. And so my concern is for individuals and groups who would be interested in affordable. My parishioners tell me their rents have already doubled. The reality for the average person is 3-bedroom north of Atlantic between Jamaica is about somewhere between $2,100 and $2,500 already. I mean, this is the reality we're seeing. And a large part of that is because anybody who would want to invest doesn't have access to financing. So it's cash developers eating up the inventory. My question is there a way that the city can incentivize for financial institutions so that those who have the resources, organizations who would want to be involved, can access financing in a timely way? Because right now you can't compete.
Well, okay, let me separate 2 pieces. And on the second part of the question, I'll turn to Carl and Daniel. Carl from the Chair of City Planning, Daniel, Deputy Commissioner of HPD, Housing Preservation and Development. So again, I really have to give you my strong assessment. Go to Bushwick, no rezoning. Go to Bed-Stuy, no rezoning. Go to Prospect Heights, no rezoning. The rents have gone through the roof for 10 and 15 years. It's not because, in my opinion, and we can all debate this, but I'm going to tell you what I have seen in my Brooklyn, in our Brooklyn. It's not because there was a rezoning, there might be a rezoning. It is larger development pressures that we see sweeping the city. The North Shore of Staten Island, the South Bronx, Washington Heights and Inwood, all sorts of places that 10 years ago, even in this city, you would not have expected. This is a big structural change in our society. I'm not saying that to excuse it, to say it's all good, because it's not. To simplify it, I'm saying it is, we in our hearts sometimes, we want to find a cause that we feel we can address in a very easy way. It's a human instinct. If we weren't even having this meeting and there was no rezoning, these pressures would be happening anyway. I believe that in my heart. And I believe all the neighborhoods I've named give us ample evidence. So it's a choice. I could say, we're going to leave every neighborhood just the way it is, and I'm going to work on other issues, and we're not going to be in a position to make a lot of these capital improvements and everything else. Just do what you do, and I hope everything works out. And you would find immense development pressures and skyrocketing rents and displacement. We made a decision in a very imperfect world to intervene with the tools we had. I cannot order a stop to private development. I cannot order people to stop selling their land to developers, right? I cannot order landlords to not raise the rent. If it's a rent-stabilized landlord, they have to play by my rules and my rent guidelines board, and they got a rent freeze this year. But if they're not rent-stabilized, it's just private sector, they are within their rights. So we are trying, it's a bit of, you'll appreciate this, Reverend, it's a bit of the serenity prayer. It really is. I mean, I'm trying to be real with people about the way we look at these things. It's the serenity prayer because we're not trying to address the things we can't address. We're trying to address the things we can. And that's what this plan is. That's what this plan is. But to the question now of, if you or anyone else says, I have an option to develop affordable housing, I have, my church owns some land, or whatever it is, we need financing to do it. This is where HPD and city planning come in, because part of this plan is to connect with anyone and everyone who wants to create affordable housing in this community.
Just generally, there's a lot of focus right now at HPD in providing financing, particularly to nonprofit developers and local developers, small builders and neighborhoods around the city. There's an acquisition loan fund program at HPD. You can go to our website and find access to that. But the purpose of that program is exactly to do what the gentleman just said, is to actually help developers who don't have a lot of cash equity in their back pocket to go after these types of properties to purchase them. There was the other piece is that we're hearing a lot about homeowners who are being harassed or being approached by people to buy their lands. And oftentimes homeowners are incentivized themselves to do it because they may have some tax lien problems. We encourage homeowners who are experiencing problems with any type of financial problems or don't have a lot of information about the credits that the mayor just talked about. There's a hotline that we have. It's 855-HOME-456. Homeowners can call that and get information. We have community partners that are working directly with homeowners to try to get them out of financial problems so they don't have to sell their homes. They can actually help them stay in their homes.
So I'm going to turn to Carl, but I want to amplify this point. This is an action item. You're going to say that phone number one more time. Say that phone number. Just use Carl's microphone.
855-HOME-456.
855-HOME-456. If homeowners are feeling harassed or under pressure and need our support, our guidance, we want to work with the community groups. We don't want anyone bamboozled or snuck up on. We want them to get support. Obviously, the councilmen and the other elected officials want to do that too. So that's one part of the equation. As I said, if anyone's being harassed or illegally evicted, you can turn to the council member or the senators. You can turn to our agencies. You can call 311, and we will get them a lawyer for free. Everyone in this room who is so deeply concerned for the community, if you know any individual who is about to lose their apartment or being overcharged or being harassed, we need you to get them to us. We need you to connect us to anyone who's going through that. Same with a homeowner. If you got a homeowner who's being made an offer that's too good to believe, which usually means it is too good to believe, help get them to us so we can get them the support to not make a mistake. Carl Weisbrod, the chair of the City Planning Commission.
I just wanted to add one thing, which is that what the mayor said about seeing these accelerated prices all over the city, we're seeing it everywhere. But the thing that's happening in East New York now, because mandatory inclusionary zoning, this is the first neighborhood in the city is covered by mandatory inclusionary zoning, and that is permanent affordability. It's not in 20 years or 15 years or 30 years where the affordability is gone and the rents go to market. These units will be permanently affordable forever.
Thank you. So,
but the other part of that is that any developer now, and this is what's so powerful about the law that was passed, any developer who wants to come in the community develop has to create affordable housing in the bargain. If they say to us, I'm not going to create affordable housing, they literally do not get to build anything. That's what this law allows for.
okay, so I'm going to take 3 more questions here, 1 question here, and I know there's a lot of questions behind me. So after 4 questions on this side of the room, we're going to move to this side of the room.
Thank you very much. Bishop Dave Benke, St. Peter's Lutheran, 2 blocks away, proud provider of universal pre-K services, but here tonight on behalf of the Coalition for Community Advancement in East Brooklyn Congregations. My question is, I'll give the question right off the top and then expand a little. Can you provide an ongoing rolling tracking system of accountability for everything that you have outlined in this program? And I'm going to explain that. It's like tonight, we just hit the lotto. We got $267 million as of tonight. It's right there on the paper. But that thing has 1,000 moving parts. 1,000 moving parts from all these agencies, all these places. And rather than getting a 14 pages at the end of the budget year, which are embedded and buried somewhere, what we really need is an ongoing, accountable tracking system. This project with parks is here, this street is there, this school is there, this housing unit is there. Everything accountable, tracked, and we could see it. We could get to it.
Stay right
That's
there.
it. Okay.
Stay right there.
I'm there. That's where I am.
Thank you for what you're doing with pre-K.
No.
The answer to your question on accountability is yes. Now here to explain it is the lovely Carl Weisbrod.
Well, let me say the answer is yes, and here's how it's going to be done. It's going to be monitored and tracked by the Mayor's Office of Operations. Everything is going to be listed and tracked, and progress on each of the things that the city committed to will be there for the public to see. We have to make a report. We'll have to make a report once a year. This is something that Councilmember Espinal insisted upon, and we agree, actually, that in the past we know the city has not always kept its promises. We are committed to keeping our promises and committed to seeing that you will see that we keep our promises.
So I want to just, one more point, then
Yeah.
I would never interrupt a man of the cloth, but let me just say very quickly. Carl said a crucial thing, we want to keep our promises. This is philosophical for us. This is not, we want to come here, tell you something, and then, skip town. We believe in this. This is what we came here to do. It's in my platform. It's everything we came here to do. So that will be online. That's not going to be in some government report somewhere. That's going to be online, literally as you said it. Every item in the plan, where it stands at each marking period.
How it rolls. If we have that, then we can hold one another accountable here. That's all, and I thank you for that answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Turn it back.
Good afternoon. My name is John Whitehead. I represent Black Mental Care Youth Organization here in East New York and Brooklyn. My question, I'd be remiss, every meeting I go to about housing, we have to bring up the fact that you have a lot of city workers in the city. And me and most of my co-workers can't afford the housing that you, or should I say we overpaid for the housing that you put, and we can't afford homes. So what are you doing for the city workers that invested so much of their lives to build the city to what it is, have affordable housing so we don't have to look to other states, which we're doing now, to have some place to live when we retire and we're getting half of our paycheck?
Okay. So I think my answer has a kind of good news and bad news element to it. The bad news, I got to be blunt about, is the same larger reality. We do not control the private sector economy. We all have to have this conversation in blunt and real terms. The prices are going up because of demand. And that's something we are doing our damnedest to address and somehow balance. But we cannot change the fundamentals of it. We just can't. What we can do is protect 400,000 people who are in public housing, and the chair of the Housing Authority, Shola Lataye, is here, and she has done a great job figuring out how to put it on a firm financial footing again and how to start putting money back into NYCHA to repair buildings, et cetera, et cetera. 400,000 people. We got 2 million people in rent-stabilized housing that we can make sure that their increases are fair, and when they shouldn't get an increase like the last 2 years, they don't. We've got 500,000 people who will benefit from the affordable housing plan that we're talking about today, that this East New York plan is a part of. Our affordable housing plan will reach 500,000 people between 80,000 new apartments and 120,000 that we subsidize in place. We got all the people we can stop from being evicted by giving them a free lawyer. Add that up, you're talking about approximately 3 million people in a city of 8.5 million people that we can protect in one way or another. And a lot of them are city workers. We also have given more fairness to city workers by giving them contracts. Because 2.5 years ago, you remember, there were not a single city worker under contract. Now 90% plus are under contract. They got raises, they got back pay. That's what I can do. If I had a federal government investing in housing, I could do a lot more. You know the situation in Washington. Maybe that's going to change in November. If I had a state government investing in affordable housing, I could do a lot more. I don't. I've been trying to create some change at the state level because we need that. We need a state senate that's going to work with us. But that, to me, is the reality we face. So it's the serenity prayer point again. Everything we can do. I cannot stop demand from raising prices. I can do all those other things to try and create some balance in the equation.
Thank you. Bill? I know there's some hands here. I'm going to have to come back to you only because there's been hands behind me that have been waiting for a while, but I'll come back to this side of the room.
Good evening. Bill Wilkins, member of the Coalition, member of the Community Board, Director of Economic Development for the Local Development Corporation of East New York. Growing businesses, changing lives, strengthening communities. I know when you're coming to East New York this evening, probably expecting some chin music, but I'm going to give you a friendly underhand pitch. 2 questions and a comment. Going through this process...
Wait. I respect you. We've worked with you. You contributed greatly to the process. It's one question to everyone.
Okay, one question then. What have you learned and what would you do differently? My feeling, my takeaway is that I think you should have engaged the coalition and stakeholders early on. I think we were near the checkout line when a lot of our asks and our requests were started to really brought into the equation. So that's my comment, and I'm interested in your commentary as your takeaway as you have to go into the next 14 communities.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that. There's no question. I'm going to differentiate the outcome, which I'm very proud of, from how we got to the outcome, which I think we could have done better. I don't think it's disconnected to the fact that when all this began, we were a pretty new administration. And we had to find our way. If I could do the whole thing, not just this rezoning, but the whole effort to create mandatory inclusionary zoning and everything over again, we would have spent a lot more time in communities early talking about the vision, listening to concerns, and trying to clarify what it was and what it wasn't. Because I think what happened is a huge amount of misinformation spread, and we did not create an environment to properly address that. But we ultimately got there, both in terms of the strongest affordable housing law in the country. Because again, if you think about this country, the notion of requiring developers to create affordable housing or they're not allowed to develop at all is a pretty radical idea, and we're very proud of it. But in terms of everything that came into the East New York plan, I think it's very comprehensive. I'm very proud of it. And as we said in answer to Michelle's question, it is not, it's not the end of what we do. It's what we are guaranteeing. To the pastor's point, this is what we're guaranteeing. It will be online. We have to meet these measures for the community. If I did not want to take responsibility for that, I would not be standing here. It would be a really stupid thing to do. or we wouldn't be putting it online. You know, that is not healthy. If you intend to bamboozle people, don't put your commitments online. No, we actually intend to do this, and then we have an opportunity to do more, particularly if we are blessed either with a decent economy going forward or some actual state and federal involvement in affordable housing. So I don't love what we did to get there. I think we could have done better. I think we have learned from this experience, but I do like the outcome.
Thank you. Jessica?
Everyone, good evening. My name is Jessica Franco Ramos, and as a parent, it's a struggle to find, it's a constant struggle actually, to find a well-rounded school that offers high-quality education. So what is your vision in the here and now to achieve higher education and parents' involvement so that we can end the tale of two cities here in New York City?
Thank you. Fantastic question. So I'll try and be really quick and summarize it. And I would say it's simply our equity and excellence plan. And we chose these words very carefully. Equity and excellence means we expect our school system to do much better by our children, and we expect that in every school and every community. Examples. It is a joke. I was a public school parent until last year when Dante graduated. It is a joke to say you want to fix schools and help children and not do full-day pre-K for every child. So we came in, and against all the naysayers, we went from 20,000 kids in full-day pre-K to 70,000 kids today all over New York City. Every child guaranteed full-day pre-K. So that's one of those building blocks. If you don't have early child education, you cannot fix the equation. We then said we want to make sure, up and down the line, that we are improving the quality of education. Today in New York City, unacceptably, 34% of kids are reading at third grade level by third grade. That's very dangerous. We've said within the next 10 years, we are going to bring that to 100%. Where a huge amount of resources are going into our schools, reading specialists, and a focus on reading and literacy in second grade, third grade, benefiting from all those kids who went through pre-K. That is a huge difference maker. Middle school, which has not gotten the attention it deserved. We've put after-school programs in literally every middle school student in New York City is guaranteed free after-school now. Now, I want you to remember, with all due respect to my predecessor, he was cutting after-school on a regular basis. We said every middle school child in New York City, every single one, regardless of where they're from, is guaranteed free after-school. We doubled the number of kids in after-school in 2 years' time. And that means that they're getting enrichment, they're getting tutoring, they're getting homework help. And then at a high school level, for example, because as you said, you want a higher quality education. A painful reality, and it has all to do with structural racism, is that in this city, some schools had all the AP advanced placement college level courses in the world, and other high schools had none. We have mandated by 2020, every high school in New York City must have advanced placement courses for their kids, because we want every child to know that they are worthy of college, and we will give them the tools to get there. So those are just pieces. There's a whole plan, equity and excellence, that you can see all the details of. But that gives you a flavor of the changes that we are making. On parent engagement, just to finish the question, the chancellor has led the way. She has an extraordinary number of meetings with PTA leaders, CEC leaders, has a lot of accessibility. She told me today, I was at a meeting with her, I think it's, what was it, Dorita, 60-something town hall meetings she's done in communities all over the city. Our senior deputy chancellor, Dorita Gibson, is here, and she can certainly fill you in with more. But I think between the chancellor's efforts and the other senior folks, the way we've tried to listen to parents, we've had a lot of proposed actions for schools that we changed after hearing parents' concerns that would not have happened in the past. So I think the level of parent engagement is steadily increasing.
Thank you. Joe?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Joe Gonzalez. Mr. Mayor, you frequently have been heard to talk about both discrimination and jobs. According to some recent research by Reverend Dennis Dillon at the Brooklyn Christian Center, he disclosed after extensive research that New York City is home to some 20,000 Asian-owned businesses. Reverend Dillon's research found not one Asian store in New York City hires black people. 80% of those of the 20,000, 80% of them are located in black neighborhoods. There appears, Mr. Mayor, under your nose to be a full-scale boycott by Asians against black people. Can your Human Rights Commission study why there's a dearth of employment by black people in these stores? And more to the question that black people all over the city have, do you as the mayor, in the face of that undeniable discrimination, believe that black people should stop spending their money at Asian-owned businesses?
No, look.
You believe that's the answer? I ask you. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you, I've not seen that study, and respectfully, that study does not ring true to me. I'm happy to have our folks look at it. But I don't think what you're outlining is the way forward at all. What we got to do, first of all, we have more healing to do in this city in general. We have more that we have to do to get people to know each other and work across community lines. I'm sure the question is well intended, but I don't like the underlying premise, because I know people in all communities of this city who are working with each other, who are hiring each other, who are supporting each other in all sorts of ways. So no, I don't buy the premise, and I certainly don't buy what you propose as a course of action. I think the answer is that, and this examples we're giving here this evening are part of it. To get at what's been a whole history of inequality, income inequality, racial inequality, we have to use all of our tools as a city government. From the very beginning, I said that is not the same as if we had all the tools of government, because the most powerful player in the equation could be the federal government. If they really wanted to invest in job creation, they want to invest in infrastructure, we have, the great model of the 1930s when the federal government got deeply involved and really sparked employment. And in the process, a lot of people who have been marginalized got opportunity. I have immense faith the government can do that, but not enough when the federal government is essentially not willing to be a participant, and largely the state government as well. So the question is, what can we do for ourselves? For ourselves, we have done full-day pre-K and after-school for all our middle school kids. We have an affordable housing plan for 500,000 people. We've done rent freezes. We've done paid sick leave for another 500,000 people who didn't have it. There's a lot of things we can do. There's a lot of things we are doing. The city has 250,000 more jobs than it did when I took office. 250,000 more jobs. And amazingly, because we really believe in a five-borough economy, the job growth levels were higher in some of the outer boroughs than even in Manhattan. So these are the things we can do. An aggressive MWBE program to empower people of color and women-owned businesses so they will hire from the community. These are the things we can do, and that was last year $1.6 billion of city contracts to MWBE programs. That is what we can do. If we see any instance of overt discrimination, the Human Rights Commission is a powerful tool and is reinvigorated under the leadership of Chair Malalas. But I think the idea that we should turn away from each other economically does not make sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Chris, then Lyric.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the councilman. I just wanted to thank you again for coming out here this evening. And my name is Chris Banks. I'm representing East New York United Concerned Citizens and the Great East New York Coalition, and a former community board member. But I just wanted to speak on the issue of the proposed prison, or the prison that's being considered built here in the East New York community. And I'm referencing to the DNA Info, which was an article that had came out, or a couple of articles that had came out a couple of months back. And you were quoted, Mr. Mayor, as saying that there was no concerted effort to look for sites for an alternative to Rikers Island. And I wanted to point out later on in the article how there was 5 city agencies based on a plan that was put in the article that had put together this proposal. You had the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, which worked on this proposal, or this plan.
And respectfully, I want to interrupt just for clarity's sake. With this proposal, I don't know what you mean, because can I just frame it for a second and then go back to your question?
I'll give you the name of the proposal.
Yeah, but let me just quick clarification. There is a working group looking at trying to close Rikers Island. I've said very honestly that that is a very, very tough mission, and we are not committed to that yet. We do not know if that's doable without a massive expense. So there is no plan to relocate Rikers Island.
Okay.
We are, just one last point, there's a small number of prisoners under 18 who we do want to get off Rikers Island, but that would not be to a prison facility. That would be to an alternative facility. So there's just like that. What I worry about is the way you framed it. The article, to be fair to you, the way the article framed it suggested we're shopping around for alternatives to Rikers when we're just not doing that.
Okay, and I'm just saying, you know, East New York, we're fearful of a lot of things that just pop up in our community. But as I was saying, the name of the proposal or the planned proposal is called the Alternative for Rikers. It's an 18-page document that was put together by the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, the Department of Corrections, the Department of Design and Construction, Economic Development Corporation, and the Office of Management and Budget had put together this plan that was reported in this particular article.
You just didn't put together
Now,
a plan. Respectfully, it's not a plan.
It's a proposed.
You can keep reading DNA info all day long, but I'm telling you, I'm the guy in charge. It's not a plan, my friend. It's just not a plan.
I'm reading an article. You were cited in the article.
I don't care if you're reading an article. I'm telling you the truth.
But I'm just saying to you, what we would like and what I would appreciate is if there is confusion within or if DNA reported wrongly, then that needs to be brought out. But if there's confusion within the administration, and based on what I've spoken to some folks in your administration, and it's been said that it hasn't gotten, your administration knows nothing about it, but in the article it cites that this proposal was presented to a deputy mayor, I believe First Deputy Mayor Anthony Soros, who's one of the highest first-ranking deputy mayor in the city. So I wanted to know where is the disconnect, and can you investigate to see why is it that you have 5 agencies putting together a plan to
I'm not sure, respectfully, if you really want to know the truth, if you want the truth, as opposed to continue to cite this article, I would think if you have the person in charge standing in front of you,
well, that's what I want you to do,
telling you the truth, as I have done publicly before, you would be more embracing of the message you're getting directly from the person in charge. I've said it publicly numerous times. There is no plan to move people off Rikers because we don't know if it's doable. We don't know if it's affordable. We don't know if it's fair. There's a commission that will study it for a year. And the goal is, look, the goal I understand. Rikers Island has a very troubled history. There is a part of me that would love nothing more than to shut it down. But I've said to the public, our cost estimates, because we had to look at what it meant. And I think when you say plan, that is a misnomer, and don't believe what you read in DNA info, with all respect to DNA info. A plan says when you're going to do something. Sometimes we do research, sometimes we try and assess things. We found out immediately that as much as the idea of shutting down Rikers, which has a nobility to it and has a meaning to it, we could all see the good in it, but it would cost $5 to $7 billion. It would require creating new jails all over the city, and I don't know any community that would like that. It would take a decade or more. So because there was a lot of concern in the community, because we too do not like the history of Rikers, we asked the question analytically, what would be involved? And the answer was so clearly difficult, if not prohibitive. But the Speaker of the City Council, working with the former Chief Judge in New York State, established a commission. They will formally study this. We'll work with them for the next year. If they can find something we haven't found, we will be open to it. But I want to affirm that there is no plan, there is no budget, there is no approval to close Rikers and build new facilities elsewhere. There's only one thing we have committed to getting the small number, I gotta get how many hundreds of inmates it is, under 18. We want to get them off Rikers. That will take several years. We have not identified how and when we're going to do that. That's the only thing we have committed to. We cannot commit to the rest of it.
Thank you. Derek? Right over here in the front.
Hello? Okay. Hi, Mayor de Blasio. Thank you, Raphael, for having this meeting. I appreciate you inviting me. My name is Lyric Thompson, and you mentioned that rent stabilization, that those landlords are under you. And I don't think that they necessarily understand that completely. In our situation, our area is gentrifying, and so last year our landlord tried to clear the building by raising the rent to $2,500. Now, this gentleman also, on our lease, told us we were not rent stabilized. There's actually no penalties that landlords suffer for bold-faced lying to the tenants, for lying to HPD with regard to repairing anything. If they false certify with HPD, they're not prosecuted. They basically get a free pass to lie to the citizens and line their pockets. And they hide behind many different LLC names and corporate names. So on one hand, they have corporate benefits and they have the protections of being a corporation, while they suffer none of the liability for their illegal acts. And so my question is this: when are we going to treat those who entertain and engage in the business of providing dwellings for our citizens? When are we going to make them be licensed to uphold to some standard like anybody else that would engage in that business? Because right now they have a free pass, and I believe they owe us approximately $1.5 billion in unpaid ECB fines.
Okay,
I'd like my money back.
Well said. A fine, thank you. A fine summary statement at the end there. I want to be clear, because the way you characterize it about my role, I just want to put it in perspective. State law governs rent stabilization. I think the state law should be stronger. I think there should be more protections for tenants. I think rent regulation in general should be strengthened. There should be many more guarantees against units going out of rent regulation. I think the whole idea of preferential rents needs re-regulation. I think the MCIs needs regulation, a whole host of things. The only thing I can tell you in the simple bluntness is, until there's change in Albany, those things we'll make progress. We made progress last year. We won't make the progress we should make until there's change in Albany, because there's an affordability crisis, a huge affordability crisis in New York City, by the way, in other parts of the state as well. And those laws, those rent laws, should be strengthened by Albany, and so far we've only been able to get incremental progress. The second thing I'll say is what I get to control is the rent increase level through the Rent Guidelines Board, and that's where we've had the 2 rent freezes. You're welcome. On the very excellent question, first of all, what happens to landlords who lie about whether it's rent stabilized or lie about the rent levels? I'm going to bring up Steve Banks to join me. Steve, step forward. And he's going to go into some of the ways we deal with that. But working with Attorney General Schneiderman, we have increasingly found criminal penalties for the worst landlords who have done, for example, have not provided heat and hot water, repairs, things to try and harass out tenants by making it unlivable. Some of those actions can reach criminal levels. And the Attorney General is now bringing criminal cases with very serious penalties against some of those landlords. But just even without reaching that level, we have powerful tools, obviously starting with legal representation, to stop evictions, stop overcharges, to penalize landlords that try to evade the rules they're supposed to live by. Steve Banks, before he became the HRA Commissioner and Social Services Commissioner, ran the Legal Aid Society and was involved in taking on landlords who were breaking the rules, breaking the law all over the city. So could you describe what happens if a landlord is lying about the rent stabilization status they're in to their tenants?
Before we pass it over, I just want to say that our Democratic senators in Albany are fighting hard for our rent stabilized.
Let me be clear. Forgive me. That's an important. They are not in the majority. They should be in the majority. Look at these two. They should be in the majority. Now, I'm sorry. I should have been clear. A Republican-led state senate in Albany has been blocking the bigger improvements on. No, not these guys. These are good guys. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Good evening. So you have both the Social Services Agency and HPD right here. We want to follow up with you on your particular building. I don't know if you have legal representation or not. Okay. Well, the good thing about being in this administration is the mayor recognizes the importance of legal services. For years, we used to be fighting to get money for lawyers to handle cases like this. And when we came into office, the budget for legal services across the city was $6.5 million. The mayor's increased it to $62 million, and that is having a big impact. So if you have 20 more buildings, bring it on, and we would be very interested in following up with you on those addresses. We have the Legal Aid Society, Legal Services NYC, Urban Justice Center. All these agencies are under contract now with the Social Services Department to provide lawyers to prevent people from being harassed. The very specific question you asked about, what's the consequence for landlords? There are a lot of consequences for landlords for bad conduct. Some of those consequences we control. HPD can bring enforcement actions. We can fund lawyers. There is the rent stabilization, the Rent Guidelines Board limitation on increases. But unfortunately, many of the rules governing bad landlord conduct, and again, as the mayor said, it's not all landlords, but it's certainly some landlords, those rules are set through state agencies. But by giving lawyers to tenants, and that's why this is such an important initiative of the mayor, by giving lawyers to tenants, we can help tenants navigate that process. Tenants by themselves trying to navigate the alphabet soup of agencies that have responsibilities across the state for this, very difficult. But providing counsel to tenant groups like yours and others in these buildings, we've been able to make breakthroughs, preserve apartments. I know that there has been case after case over the last year in which the mayor provided this funding, in which people have been represented by lawyers where they have exactly the same story as you, which is we were rent stabilized, the landlord said we weren't, they wouldn't give us renewal leases, they started letting the conditions run down, and that's exactly the problem that's gone on for years that the administration and the mayor is addressing by providing these dollars. So we're going to follow up with you, get information about your building and about the 20 buildings that you're talking about, and we're going to make a difference building by building through this initiative.
Thank you. Erica Perez?
Hi, good evening. My name is Erica Perez. My first and foremost and most important job I have is being a parent of 3 teenagers. My biggest concern being in East New York, it's great, all this building and all these things that are coming in, but I don't see a plan for a college for the future. Now we have so many people coming in, and we're talking about elementary schools when a lot of the elementary schools are underutilized right now. What we really need is a college, because when the kids come out of high school, they're there listless. And I've heard about the great workforce program that you guys are putting in place, and that's wonderful, but in order to even bring the crime rate further down is to educate these young teenagers. So if we give them something here within the community, not only would it bolster work, employment, it'll give people a better feeling of themselves, a better self-worth. And being that I have 3 children and they're teenagers and they're struggling, I shouldn't have to go and look outside the borough. East New York wants the best. We need a college.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I hear you. I understand. I'm your fellow parent. I understand the impulse. I don't like to tell people I'm going to do something I can't do, so I'm not going to tell you I can get you a college. I'm going to be real with you. I think of the things that we're trying to focus on. I would argue, with absolute respect for what you're saying, that it is first imperative to fix our public schools, because I think our CUNY system as it is now, and it has grown over the years, so there's capacity. Our CUNY system is there for the young people and obviously many other colleges. We have options for them. We have good choices. And by and large, when it comes to higher education, the state does that, not the city, although we pay some of the costs of community colleges. We don't do the 4-year colleges. But I think our public schools are so far off the mark that that's where we need to put our education investments. And in terms of helping our young people get to college, We're putting a lot more money into guidance counselors, a lot more money into getting young people oriented to college, even starting in middle school, and more assistance-free SAT tests, for example, so kids don't have to pay a charge for SATs. Honestly, you don't have to agree with me, obviously, but I just want to be real about my response. I don't want to say, oh, yes, of course, and then not mean it. I think the best thing we can do is use everything that we can to fix our public schools, to get the kids ready to go to college out of our public schools to the best option they can. And then for some kids, college is not their choice. And that's fine, too. There's a lot of great things that kids can do who don't go to college. That's where the Workforce One centers are crucial, getting kids the opportunities they want.
Thank you. So we're going to take a few more questions here, about 3, and then we're going to move over to the side of the room.
Hi, good evening. My name is Janice Morgan.
Louder, please.
My name is Janice Morgan. I'm the chairperson of Community Board 16, and I actually want to piggyback off of the questions around education. I've been waiting all night to ask that question because the original East New York Sustainable Studies Plan actually called for a college institution. But now if you can't promise a college institution in this community, even though when you look at other neighborhoods around the city, most of them have a secondary, post-secondary institution in the community, so that makes education and jobs and quality of life in the community a lot better. But think about New York City public schools historically used to be a trade school model. So if we can't have a college, how about returning to that trade school model and getting people trained in jobs so that when they do leave high school, they can actually go into the workforce with a skill and they have proper time to actually work on those trades.
Dorita Gibson is the Senior Deputy Chancellor. Can you talk about the CTE programs? Because, so trade school, which is what you and I knew coming up, or vocational school, as you know, over time, a lot of people had a very bad attitude and unfair attitude towards those schools. Today we call it career and technical education because we think it better explains what it should be for a lot of young people. They learn, technology skills or whatever it is, and they want to go that choice, go straight into the workforce. They have that opportunity. So we're expanding those exact kind of schools. Dorita, could you speak to that?
We've expanded those programs across the city. We've hired someone to actually manage that program who came out of a CTE program across the city. But we're putting them in a lot of our high schools. It's high technology. It's equated to STEM. It really does give students an opportunity to actually get a license before they leave school, whether it's in welding, in plumbing. There's lots of great things that it's highly educational, and it also has a region component to it. So I don't want to close the door that says if you're in a CTE program, like we used to call it in the past, a trade school, that was the end of your rope. That's not what that's about. It really does give students an opportunity to go on to college if they choose, or to take college in a different route and maybe work beforehand, because they'll have a license when they leave the high school program and actually prepare to go to college or not. But they can actually make a good living there. So we're expanding those programs across the city. We're really devoted to that, and we've had a lot of success around it. Sure, we will, and it's it's in all of our boroughs, but I'll particularly look at what's happening in Brownsville and our high schools here. A P-Tech school? We've expanded the P-Tech school model, but we have a lot of schools that are doing College Now programs. We're really expanding the work that's happening on AP programs, students doing work on college campuses. And we've expanded the work that we're doing in terms of getting children ready. P-Tech is not the only school that does college programs. There are a lot of students in New York City that are leaving high school with some college credits. And we partner with all of our CUNY schools.
Yeah, and every high school in this community, because I want to go back to the point about advanced placement, every high school in this community will have advanced placement courses, college-level courses, by 2020. But to the question, I think that's that's the kind of thing that we would have a shot to do, to add an additional either career and technical program in one of the high schools here, or maybe even build a specific technology-focused school. That's the kind of thing we have an option to do going forward. So again, I want to differentiate, because I've done a lot of town hall meetings. I think it's very important to be honest about a guarantee versus something we're really willing to give a try. To create more career and technical education options in East New York, yes, that's something we could do. We have to figure out what that looks like, and Dorita can follow up.
We want to raise the bar on all of our students. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, welcome to East New York again, and I compliment you on your endeavor to place early literacy coach in each elementary school so that our children can read before the 3rd grade. My question, there's a generation of young adults, ages 23 to 28, that have been born right here in East New York. They've graduated with multiple degrees, and they would like to work and reside here in the East New York community. Problem is they can't afford the rent. So they are forced to move out to other boroughs and other states. My question is there a plan to help us retain our young people in that age group so that they can connect education and culture here in East New York?
Well, I guess I'd say the plan, in my view, is everything we've talked about so far. It is trying to change the trajectory of our schools so that young people have the best skills so they can get the best jobs and get the best income. For example, a young person comes out of our schools and gets a 2-year STEM degree at CUNY. So one of the things we put a lot of money into is 2-year degrees in the CUNY system, science, technology, engineering, math, STEM. You can go with a 2-year degree straight into one of our technology companies. There's 300,000 jobs in the technology sector in New York City, and I will not be surprised if that goes up to 400,000 or even 500,000 in the next few years. What people in technology sector said to me is, you know, people don't need to go to MIT. If they've gone to a CUNY school and gotten a 2-year degree, we have good paying jobs right now, and in fact, they can't fill some of those jobs. So the argument I would make is we're trying to get more opportunities for people from East New York and many other neighborhoods where there wasn't enough opportunity in the technology sector, in the film and TV sector, in the sectors of the city that are paying higher wages, so that then people are in a better position to afford housing. If you say, well, what are you doing for affordable housing? It's everything we just laid out. The 500,000 people will benefit from our housing plan, what we're doing for NYCHA, rent stabilization, anti-eviction. But I think in terms of the question, how do you get a young person who is committed to where they come from to be able to live here, I think the best answer is the best education, which is what our Equity and Excellence Plan is trying to achieve, and get them to a higher paying job, which the city has more and more of, but they historically have not gone to people from many outer borough neighborhoods. We got to open up that opportunity path. And having 2 of the Workforce One centers in the community, and Greg Bishop, come forward if you would, Greg Bishop is the Commissioner for Small Business Services. They run the Workforce One centers. I want him to tell you in very vivid terms, Greg grew up in Brooklyn himself, what kind of opportunities, if someone walks in the door of one of those centers, the kind of jobs that they can get connected to.
So good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So our Workforce Center, which we will have one open up on Atlantic, we work in different sectors. So certainly we work with the local businesses to actually open up opportunities and connect individuals from this local neighborhood to those opportunities. But we've made an investment to actually do more training in healthcare, in technology, in construction, in industrial and manufacturing. And some of the stuff that we've talked about in terms of getting and open up opportunities, but also training individuals in the skills that the private sector needs, and then making that connection to actually connect them to jobs. So there's a number of opportunities. We have over 1,000 job openings right now in Brooklyn. So certainly, you know, I can give you my information, or if anyone is looking for a job, can call 311 and get information on how to get to their to the local, to the Workforce Center that's downtown Brooklyn. But we, by September, will have one here in East New York. So that's going to be good for the community.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Abdul. I represent a group of people who bought a home in East New York. Now, you have a lot of people who already own homes, but there's a whole lot of people who have affordable house, not affordable housing, but affordable living standards. They don't respect the people who have the homes. Now, the home that I bought is almost $500,000. But I have individuals who throw garbage. We have businesses who throw a lot of hazardous situations in our neighborhood. We have a halfway house across the street. Now, when you start developing this rezoning, what is the city going to do to protect the individuals who own homes and don't want the things to get worse for us?
I appreciate the question. I'm going to try to make sure I'm bringing a clear answer to this. From my perspective, the things that are going into this rezoning uplift the whole community. If you're talking about all these amenities, improvements to parks and schools and all the things, Councilman can list them off again, that's good for homeowners, that's good for renters. I just think that's neighborhood improvement in general. The housing that will be created will be a mix. It will be some people at market rate, some people in affordable, some people affordable at the very lowest income level. It'll be a mixed. It'll be a community like so many communities in this city that have a mix of incomes, people who have different walks of life, different professions. I think that's healthy. I think that's strong. That helps the neighborhood to be strong on many levels. In terms of the things you're describing, I think there's also a police element. If you're having quality of life crime violations, if people are not treating your property properly, then that's something that the police have to support you on. So has that been happening with you or not? Yes? Wait a minute, let's get the microphone back over so everyone can hear.
I'm sorry. Around the community, yes. But with influx of more people, I envision that it's going to get a lot worse for me, where I have to get rid of my house and go somewhere else.
Well, I would argue, I respect the question, but I would argue it's the opposite. I would argue that these are things that will strengthen the community. I don't think more people means a worse neighborhood. I think if you're talking about a lot of physical improvements to the neighborhood, I think it's a better neighborhood on many levels and a stronger neighborhood. So I would argue to you, I would not work from that assumption. And I'll let the councilman speak because he's much more expert than I. I think the notion here is how do you strengthen the neighborhood across the board? And in many ways, I think homeowners will appreciate.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of quality of life issues happening on your block in particular, but you should call my office and we can help you address all those issues. We'll keep in touch with DSNY, with the NYPD, and all those agencies that are in charge of taking care of those issues. But I also want you to know that the City Council recently sponsored a cleanup initiative where we're able to send out cleanup teams in the community to help clean up blocks like yours and also major corridors. So again, if you're having like those specific issues, I urge you to call my office so that we can talk to the correct agencies to fix those problems.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ms. Moore Brannick. I live in East New York. I'm an owner. I was born in a hospital but raised in New York City Housing Authority. And I'm now owner here in East New York. My question to you is, why is it that it seems like the housing projects, because I love all my community, why does it seem like nothing is getting done to these people apartments unless it's on the news? Seems like nothing is getting done to anything with the projects unless something happens there. I do appreciate the lights that y'all put over there by the Linden projects, because if nothing happened, it would still be dark over there. But the lights do look hideous. Is there a way that they're gonna fix it where they'll finally put poles throughout the projects to make it look better? Because when I was raised up in the projects, the apartments did not look like that. These apartments are looking terrible, and it seemed like the past 2 to 3 years, every time I'm watching Channel 12 News, thank you, you're seeing someone complaining the way their apartments are looking. Now, you're supposed to be beautifying East New York, and you're bringing in this low-income housing. What are you doing with the low-income city housing that you already have here?
All right, I'll take that challenge. Shola, come join me. Well, okay. So let me start at the beginning, and then the chair of the Housing Authority will speak to this as well. A lot of public housing in the city is 50 years old, 60 years old, and the buildings, I mean. And through certainly when I was coming up, the federal government was very actively investing. 1960s, 1970s, and I think basically history changes when Ronald Reagan gets elected. So the federal support for affordable housing and public housing has been going steadily down ever since. Pretty much the same at the state level. So the honest, blunt truth is you got all these buildings that were getting older. They weren't getting any better as they got older. And there was not a lot of investment coming in. The city did what it could do. The federal government did some. I'm not going to say they did nothing, but they needed to keep increasing, and they did not keep increasing. So if we kept on that path, we were just going to hit the wall. It was going to be very, very bad. We said, okay, what can we do as the city of New York? Because we have no illusion about the Republican Congress or the Republican State Senate coming to the aid of the New York City Housing Authority. Shola created a plan to find every form of resources we could to put into the Housing Authority, try and keep it from going bankrupt, first of all, which it was getting very close to, and then start making the capital improvements, the big things that made the buildings better, which would cost right now today, if you fixed up every NYCHA building the way we'd like to, it would be $18 billion, to give you a sense of the scale. But we did some things right away. NYCHA, the Housing Authority, used to pay, until I became mayor, they paid for police services. I mean, this is just outrageous. They, for decades, paid out of the money that the Housing Authority had, they paid to have policing. We ended that. We gave the money back to the Housing Authority for repairs. They used to pay taxes to New York City. This is a part of the city, too. From 1947 until last year, the Housing Authority paid taxes to New York City. I canceled that, gave the money back to the Housing Authority for repairs. So these are pieces of the solution. But it's at least allowing us to have a lot more money on hand to make some of the most necessary repairs. Now, on the lighting, Shola will tell you some of the details, but we have put new lighting in a number of developments, and a lot of new lighting for safety. Not everyone may agree with it aesthetically. That is your choice and your right as an American citizen. But what the residents kept telling us is they needed lights. And what the police kept telling us was they could not keep people safe unless they could see what was going on. So Shola will tell you about the lighting initiative in particular, but some of the other things we're doing.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your comments. Good evening. Shola Olatoye. First of all, you are absolutely right. The headlines that capture some of the challenges that the mayor's context illustrates of what happens when you don't invest in public housing is exactly what you mentioned. Our plan is, let's be honest, it's a 10-year effort to try and turn around what is the city's truest affordable housing, honestly. And so what New York is doing, which is very different from the rest of the country, is preserving it. So with this administration, we have invested $300 million to replace roofs, a number of them here in East New York. You see a lot of scaffolding, and I know I'll hear complaints about scaffolding, and there are real issues there, and we're working with PD to make sure that we keep them well lit and policed. But we have a lot of work going on because we're replacing roofs that actually deal with the water and the leaks and the plaster and the painting issues that are in people's apartment. And on the lighting front, just on Wednesday, we announced with our resident leaders here from Boulevard Houses the completion of a major lighting initiative as part of the mayor's action plan for neighborhood safety. We've done that in 3 other developments around the city, Bushwick, Polo. By the end of this year, we'll be in 6 other developments. So there's a major investment in terms of not only support, meaning public housing is part of this plan to address the broader affordable housing crisis, but actual real dollars. I will not tell you that it's going to happen overnight. We are seeing some progress in basic maintenance getting done faster, but it's not enough. And that's the work that we are doing right now every single day. So, and in terms of keeping us accountable, I want to encourage you to look at our website where we have by development, the type of activities, investments that are happening there. and our progress in meeting some of those goals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Mayor, to East New York. Thank you for coming. My name is Maria Julia Jard. I'm a tenant organizer for tenants in Arlington Village across the street. I work for a nonprofit organization in the area. And, well, I've been working with trying to organize people in Arlington Village, all these tenants, since last year. They've been facing a lot of challenges, harassment, evictions, displacement, demolitions, illegal constructions, illegal people working without license, all kinds of things. Most of these tenants, which at least 11 of them are in this room, they've been living there for like 30, 40, 50 years. A lot of them are senior citizens already. One of them served a country with the Japan War. Well, it's a lot of, we've been supported by the legal services that you mentioned before, that you put for the community. But we see every day that the landlords are getting away with a lot of things, like
So,
like I say.
I think I got the, I'm going to jump in because I think I get it. Steve, come on over. So I want to be very specific in this instance. Is there a particular, wait, let her keep it a sec. Is there a particular building or buildings that you're referring to?
Well, Arlington Village is a village.
Oh, Arlington Village in general.
Arlington
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
I didn't hear that at the beginning.
Removed from the rezoning.
Right.
So it's not allowed to build up, but it's not known what they're planning to do.
But you're saying within Arlington Village,
Within.
people are being harassed, people are not
yes.
getting services, all that. Okay, and Raphael, sorry, Arlington Village is Mitchell-Lama?
It's all unstabilized apartments.
It's a complex,
Two square blocks
Okay.
of housing.
So, Steve, I need you to do me a personal favor. Yes. Okay. Do you have a group of tenants from the building that you could gather together?
Yeah, I have 11 right here.
You have 11 here. Okay, that's a good start.
But we form a tenant association.
Okay.
And we also are trying to work in an HP in coordination.
So this is what I'd like to do. At the end of this meeting, Commissioner should, and our Deputy Commissioner from HPD, Daniel, you should come over and Vito Mostaccioli, who's the leading expert on making landlords make repairs. We'll at the end have them get with you guys to understand the problem, and then a group of them will come out and meet with the tenants at Arlington Village with an action plan of what we can do. So at the end of this meeting, get together with this group, and then they will come to Arlington Village. Can we do that next week? Next week, next week, next week. They like next week as an idea, right? All right, next week, they will come out to you, okay?
Great.
Thank
you so much
Thank
for
you.
your support. And they've been doing everything by the book with the calling 311 and everything.
We're on it. We're on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Behind you, then you. Behind you, then you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you coming here. I'm a vet, and I experienced a situation when I was placed in a homeless shelter, and they didn't recognize me, and they didn't give me the priority as being a vet because they took a long process for me to be in the shelter. I didn't mind because I was out of the street, but they didn't recognize me as being a vet, and it took a long process for me to get into where I am now. Thank the Lord, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, that I have my own place. And right now, I'm with Miss Inez, and she's very good supporter for me. And I'm trying to do something for the community. But my question is why is such a long process for a veteran? I hear every talk about, but we don't recognize a veteran who fought for this country and put our line on a life that we are a victim of being processed too long to be placed where a facility where we deserve to be enjoy our home.
I agree. Look, I want to thank you. Everyone says thank you for your service, and I'll say that too, but I want to say thank you for standing up here for veterans, for everyone. And thank God, in your case, something did work, and I know you worked hard to make it work. So the President of the United States said to mayors all over the country that we had to end the homelessness we were having with veterans. And it was the chronic homelessness was the worst part. That meant a veteran that was homeless like almost all the time or consistently. We were able to stop that problem in this city at the end of last year because we put a lot of resources into getting those veterans housing. But there are still veterans who are homeless some of the time. And we have said to any veteran who's homeless in New York City, we're going to get you to permanent housing. I've been at some of the shelters where I've met homeless vets. I've literally been there with Steve Banks, and we take the minute we find out someone's a veteran, they immediately become a priority to get permanent housing. And we keep doing it over and over. Since this administration came in, thousands of veterans have gotten housing. Anyone in this room who knows a veteran who is homeless, we want to know how we can reach them to get them housing. It's as simple as that. The country, just make a quick comment, the country has failed veterans. I am so sick of the people who love to salute the flag and tell you how much they believe in the military, and then they won't authorize money for veterans. That's what's happening in the Congress. So we should get a lot more help. We know it's not here right now, but we're going to do it ourselves to the best of our ability. And if you know anyone, because people will look up to you, if you know anyone who needs our help, we have a new Department of Veteran Services, the first the city's ever had. One of our highest priorities to get people housing. If you know of anyone, the woman who runs that department, former Brigadier General Lori Sutton of the Army, is devoted to making sure that veterans get housing, and we will help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John McCadney. I'm the second vice president of Community Board 16 in Brownsville. Good evening to you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Councilman. The question I have is, what provisions does your administration have toward helping returning prisoners? Many of our young people, after lengthy prison sentences, come back home. Many of them have no place to live. Their parents have died after long sentences. They're barred from living in public housing because of a felony conviction. They carry their albatross around their neck for life of having a felony conviction. They're not employable. What are we going to do with this large population of men and women who are residents of our community? They get counted in these prisons upstate for the census purposes of giving large congressional districts upstate to areas that essentially have no real population, but they are forgotten people. Even biblically, there's a period called Jubilee where things are forgiven. Debts are forgiven, slaves were freed, prisoners were released. If there is some way that you could suggest that maybe these prisoners, after they serve their sentences honorably, that they could be pardoned or their records could be expunged so they could go on with a normal life. Many of these men have families that they need to support, and they need to be able to work.
I agree. And let me tell you how we've started to do it, and I want Greg Bishop to come up again because I want to just let you know, for the city of New York, we employ 350,000 people. With the city council, we passed legislation that bans any consideration of prior incarceration record. Because once you have given your time, once you've served your time and paid your debt to society, it's not supposed to count against you anymore. So it's called ban the box, and it means you cannot ask an applicant for a job if you serve time in prison because, again, if you're out, it means you completed your sentence and you did your debt to society. So we need to get people a clean slate. From the point of view of city employment, 350,000 jobs, We do not regard previous incarceration as a negative factor. But again, that is not mitigate from, I'm starting, this is a two-part, I want to turn to Greg also. It does not mitigate against the city of New York hiring them. That's what I'm trying to say. This is another serenity prayer point. We're trying to fix the things we know we can fix. We are one of the biggest employers in New York City. 1/3 of a million people work for us. We do not discriminate against someone because they're incarcerated. Now, Greg runs the job training for all of New York City, about $500 million in training resources, the job placement programs, et cetera. Greg, please describe how you do not discriminate against people who were incarcerated.
So we have a special program focused on individuals returning from the criminal justice system, where we have employers who have made a commitment to actually hire these individuals. We do training. Sometimes they need to get up to speed in terms of technology, get their resumes updated. So we provide extensive training and actually job placement specifically for any individual that has been formerly incarcerated. So if there's anyone that you know of that need job placement services, please see me after this and I'll be more than happy to connect them to the program.
But I want to emphasize that because I really appreciate your question and I love the invocation of Jubilee. So this is our own humble version of that. But literally, this is a proud son of Brooklyn right here, running a very big effort. Let's give him a round of applause. But this is what I want to say to everyone in the room. I'm trying to say, I'm here to answer, to be accountable, but I also believe every resident can be part of the solution. So we talked about, if you know a homeless vet, get them to us so we can get them a home. If you know a formerly incarcerated person looking for a job, he just said he's got 1,000 jobs going wanting at his downtown Brooklyn Workforce One Center. And he does not discriminate against people who are incarcerated. If you know a child whose family, they have a 4-year-old child and they're not in pre-K, help us get them pre-K. If you know a child in 6th, 7th, 8th grade who doesn't get middle school for free, help us get them middle school. If you know someone who is about to be evicted or being harassed, get them to call 311 or call for them so we can get them a free lawyer. I mean, this is what we believe in, but everyone, so what I'm going to ask, and this is a respectful, loving challenge to the room. The next time someone says, I have this problem and no one will help me, if it's one of those problems I just named, you can be the difference maker. Connect them to us so we can help them. But certainly for the formerly incarcerated, we can help them.
We're going to take one more question on this side of the room, or two more. I know I'm getting a lot of stink eyes, a lot of evil eyes all around here, but there's a lot of questions in the room, and I'm trying to get to everyone, and we will get to everyone. It would just be a little patient.
The councilman just lied to you. He lied to you. Could you hear that lie? He said, no, what does he mean? Over the course of the year? He lied to you. I just want to tell everyone, it is 9:50. I'm glad it's okay for you. We can go a little longer, but I'm going to be honest with you. I only got so much left in me. But this is not the last time I will be in the community. So, no, we can't get to everyone, but we can get to some more people.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Councilmember Espinal. We thank you for coming to our community. I've been a resident of this community for 41 years, all of my adult life, and I love this community and the people in it, and we appreciate you coming out. I'll make mine brief. I would like to know if you could hook me up with someone in your office to speak to
How do you mean that?
Hook us up to sit down, because I've written to you. I wrote to you in 2014.
Okay.
And you referred my complaint to Commissioner Bean.
Commissioner Vicky Bean? Okay.
Yes, and Commissioner Bean referred it to her Office of Housing Supervision.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they are the problem.
Aha.
Okay? So...
I hate when that happens.
So, in all due respect, I would like to know, because I'll keep it brief and I'll tell you what happened. Back in 2008, Linden Plaza, which is right here in the heart of East New York, went through a major refinancing restructuring of rents. And at the end of the day, we were charged for, as the tenants, $140 million transaction. We just discovered 2 months ago that entire transaction was only $20 million. No, I'm under Inez Barron.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As I said, the transaction that we were charged for, the rents were structured to pay for a $140 million transaction. Our rents went up 93% in 2 years.
Okay. Let me see if anyone from HPD, I know, Daniel, Vito, does anyone have expertise about this building? You don't know that building? Does anyone know?
It's a Mitchell-Lama.
Okay, Mitchell-Lama.
It's a Mitchell-Lama.
Okay,
yes.
so let's do this. We will have, I'm trying to think the easiest one. You're saying you think HPD, that office, was the problem, you're saying?
They are the problem.
Okay.
Because I'll explain.
No, I don't know.
No,
just for the
okay,
sake of everyone,
okay.
I'm going to do a follow-up,
Okay.
but I want to make it a fair follow-up. Vito, you will follow up, but here's what I need. I need to hear what the outcome was, personally, so you'll send it to me. And if we can resolve it, great. And if we can't, if there's still a tension with HPD, then we're going to kick it upstairs to City Hall for us to adjudicate it. So Vito is very, very good about follow-up. He will follow up with you, and then Vito, you will brief me, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take one more here, then we'll go to Brother Paul Muhammad, and then we'll do some.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zumalina Den. I founded Preserving East New York in order to protect the historical buildings that makes our neighborhood special. And my question is, what role does the Landmarks Preservation Commission play in this major rezoning proposal? If we don't protect, if we don't preserve the roots of our communities, then how can neighborhoods retain their identity and be effectively revitalized?
I appreciate the question, and I certainly share that worldview, but I do not know the specific answer to the question of how it works in this rezoning, but the chair of the City Planning Commission will help me. Landmarks, how do you consider landmarks in this rezoning? What's your approach to landmarks?
Well, when we did this rezoning, one of the issues that we have to look at in our environmental impact statement is what the impact of it's going to be on historic preservation. One of the things that resulted from this rezoning is that one building, Gordon Dairy, has been calendared for preservation. And I know that there is at least one other building that's being looked at for and is going to be the community center, 127 Pennsylvania, that ultimately has historic features as well. But beyond that, I really have to refer to the Landmarks Commission.
Let's do better than that. Let's do better. We're at town hall meeting environment, Carl. We don't refer people. We bring the government to them. So we will, as the chair of the City Planning Commission, he will make sure with his team that you get connected to Landmarks Preservation Commission. We will do that for you so that you can get a better answer from them.
Can I say one more?
No, because it's one per person. I got a lot of people who want a chance.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Call on someone. Come here, guys.
Yes. Good evening.
He thinks we said we'd answer. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Brother Paul Muhammad. Thank you for coming out, and thank you, Espinal, for having you. I'm a member of this community for approximately 48 years. My family bought here just after, and I've heard you champion something I'd like to hear you talk about. My question deals with HPD and its incentive to hire locally and get the people here involved. It all stems with something I think that you were talking about. We were talking about the federal government. You know, we talk about the left wing and the right wing. Well, it's all part of the same bird. You know, and what we're looking at right now is our people are suffering here, and opportunities that could come from HPD if they affect Section 3 and the guidelines of where the people here can get the jobs here. We haven't talked about the young people here and the opportunities. We have to talk about what are they going to do, because ain't a damn thing affordable without a job. So we have to now talk what we have. Only thing we have is the land here. The land. And if Section 3, Martin Luther King died, he was murdered 10 days before that was passed. And in that Section 3, in the Fair Housing Act of 1968, it was dealt about housing, also dealt about jobs and the opportunities that's supposed to come to our neighborhoods from that. And I'm hearing you talk about it, and you're touching on federal implications, but the federal government needs to take charge of this rezoning, because this rezoning is leading to desperate racist rezoning policies. East New York, and I'm going to go to the jobs, is 65% resident tenants and 35% homeowners. We take part. We have a good community, but what we need is to build. We need to build people, not buildings. So how can you tell me, how can you support that the people here who live here, and Section 3 not only covers the projects, but covers those in the surrounding areas, how they can get the job opportunity needed to stay here? Because nothing's affordable without a job.
Well, I think, first of all, nothing is affordable without a job. I couldn't agree with that more. And what we're trying to do is create affordable housing and at the same time create opportunity in the community. Now, Section 3, I used to work for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Section 3 is a very good idea that is not what it should be. I want to be very straightforward with you, because there's no regulatory mechanism, there's no funding mechanism. So it is a great idea too often in name only. There's nothing a city should do or has to do because of Section 3. That is the bold truth. Let me just offer I'm speaking in broad terms. Shola is the chair of the Housing Authority. She could give you a more precise estimation. I'm giving you what I think is the blunt reality. We want to, of our own volition, maximize economic opportunity while doing affordable housing creation, while doing market housing creation, while doing all of the above. So it's not because there's a federal guideline, because what it is a guideline. It's not what it should be, which is something truly powerful and with teeth, and there's certainly no funding attached. It is that we want to maximize local opportunity. Now, if I had my druthers, I would have the right to order it. I want to be very plain, and I suspect you and I would agree very deeply on this. If I could tell a private sector developer, you cannot develop unless you hire locally, I would do that tomorrow. It is not legal at this moment in time. That is, higher governing laws at the state and federal level do not allow that. Again, it is a free enterprise system for better or for worse. Within those constrictions, we're still trying to maximize job creation for local residents. So I'd like to answer this. Maria Torres Springer is the president of the Economic Development Corporation. Shola may have some insight as the chair of the Housing Authority. Let them tell you what our vision is to create job opportunity through rezonings.
Thank you very much for your question and your comments. So we're very committed to making sure, as you said, that what we're doing is not just about building buildings or rezoning, but really building opportunity. So just a few concrete examples. The Workforce One Center, one of the things that it will do is make sure that we're connecting local residents to opportunities that exist not just in the private sector, but attached to the projects that we're doing. And so under the mayor's leadership, there are new provisions to make sure that through housing development programs, or when EDC uses an incentive program, that we may not be able to compel developers to hire specific people, but we are able to require them to work with Greg's Workforce One Center to get that same effect, to connect people to opportunity. The investments that we're making in the industrial business zone, I think, are also really important. That $17 million to make sure that we're improving both the physical and the digital bones of the IBZ. And what's great about that, that's 3,000 jobs today that we want to make sure continue to be there and grow. And so again, the Workforce One Center will make sure to make connections with local East New York, Brownsville residents so that they have access to jobs that are there in the IBZ now and will come online because we are strengthening that industrial business zone.
Thank you again for your comment. We can do a lot better at the Housing Authority connecting our residents to jobs. Last year, we helped place more than 3,000 NYCHA residents in real jobs, permanent jobs. We've done a couple of things to make this easier. This year, one, NYCHA residents can apply for all sorts of training, OSHA training, et cetera, online, and then be in a queue when there are job opportunities available at developments. So one is making it easier for people to get trained and be certified, and then we have a running list and pipeline of residents throughout the city that we are connecting to capital projects happening on our developments as well as in other parts of the city. So the first thing is, let's get people connected online. The second thing is, we have the NYCHA digital van, which actually goes around to developments. So if people don't have access to computers and stuff at home, they can also do that online there. If that isn't an option as well, our REASE program, Resident Economic Engagement and Sustainability Efforts, has a walk-in office at 787 Atlantic Avenue where people can go and also get information about training and job opportunities at the Housing Authority.
We're gonna take.
Happy to talk to you offline.
We're gonna take 2 or 3 more questions, then we will conclude for the evening. Give the mic here.
All right, good evening. I am Donna Stone, 44 years in East New York and also a tenant of Linden Plaza. I've heard about our children and we've got to invest in them. I've heard about our veterans. They've got to be protected because they protected us. I'm standing for the little old folks who's already done the job. And we want to know, I need to know from you, how are you going to protect the senior citizens who have lived through this time, okay? Did our part already. We're not new in this fight. We've been here a minute, okay? I paid my dues to make 68 years old. I'm proud of that. Now I need the city to protect me, all right? Because there was a time the city did protect our seniors, okay? Now, and I'm blessed now because these rents are outrageous. I've been blessed to be accepted under SCREE, finally. But everybody's not in my position to be accepted under SCREE or the SHE program.
Right. No, I got it.
So what are you going to offer those that are not eligible for those programs? That's my question.
Okay. No, I appreciate the question a lot. And by the way, not only have seniors paid their dues and given us the city we have today, seniors are becoming a bigger and bigger part of the population of the city, which is a blessing because we're all doing better and we're all aging longer. So there's a lot of people who should have been on SCREE, but the limit was too low. We got the limit increased with our colleagues in the legislature. But now there's tens of thousands of people who qualify and are not getting it because they don't know or because there's a paperwork hang up or whatever. So we're trying a very aggressive outreach effort to get all those seniors who have a right, because as you know, it essentially freezes your rent. We're trying to reach them. Now, that being said, by doing the rent freeze the last 2 years for rent-stabilized housing, we reached a huge number of seniors. Remember, we were talking about the almost 2 million people in rent-stabilized housing, a huge percentage of them are seniors. So they're getting help that way. The affordable housing plan I referred to, 10,000 apartments are specifically for seniors, but many others will go to seniors who apply to the different lotteries and all. But the NYCHA piece of the equation, what Shola has done, and I give her a lot of credit because it was not easy. So where you live and you love, you said Linden? Okay. So, or Linden Plaza, I'm sorry. I thought you said Linden Houses. Let me talk about the NYCHA piece and I'll come to this. The 400,000 people in NYCHA, including a very substantial percentage of seniors, would have really been in trouble if the place went bankrupt. Shola did great work to stop that from happening and start us making investments. So it's like piece by piece by piece by piece, but a lot of it does benefit our seniors. And I think from my point of view, you know, when you think about stopping eviction, a lot of seniors are vulnerable to landlords who try to trick them, especially if they happen to speak another language, for example. So the lawyers we're providing for free are part of that. So I think all of these pieces are part of protecting the interests of seniors and keeping them in affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Dharma Diaz from the Coalition for Community Advancement.
I want to first thank NYCHA staff. I happen to work with the homeless population, and I'm enjoying the process of when my families are identified. Within 4 to 5 weeks, they're into permanent housing. So thank you for that effort. To HPD, about 13 months ago, I brought up the fact that as we're mandated staff to DHS to enroll families into Housing Connect, it's extremely difficult with the password process, and it has not been made any easier. So please, whatever you've done, it's not working. Try to go back and try to figure it out, because it's really a pain to sit with someone who the system disconnects you after 3 attempts, and you have to wait 24 hours, if not 72 hours, to go back and try to assist the family. But whatever you're doing is wrong on that one. And then also, through our conversation process with the coalition, we spoke of 500 vouchers.
What's your one question?
Well, no, that's my question to you, was in reference to the 500 vouchers for Link that we spoke about. An update on that. Was that resolved? Was there a true commitment for families returning back into?
So part of the rezoning was to secure 500 Link vouchers for East New Yorkers who fell into our homeless shelter. That commitment is there, and the commitment is real. And HRA and the mayor's office is working to make sure that those individuals receive those vouchers.
But our question is, what's the process in identifying the families, and how long would it take for the families to get those vouchers? I understand the 90-day process and all that good stuff, but once they meet the 90-day threshold, how do we identify the families?
Right. In working with the council member, we said that by the end of the summer, September, we would identify people that are in the system who have come from East New York and give them the either Link or City FEPS or SEPS, any one of the various programs that you're very familiar with working with, and then we'll have that pool of families to begin to be start to be connected to housing. And if at the moment that we happen to look at it, there aren't exactly 500 families in the system, we'll keep going until we reach that number, because it was a firm commitment, and I appreciated the work with the council member on that.
Thank you. Albert Scott. We're going to close it out with Albert Scott.
I know, right? It'll be quick. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for coming out. My point is more or less in regards to the economic participation, in regards to the rezoning, in the rezoning plan. We speak about the affordable housing, but we like to focus, the community board is focusing on the economic participation in the beginning, the middle, and the end. When we look at that, now once the discussion was affordable housing, we want the affordable commercial. The commercial discussion has not been fully discussed. 2 entities that we're looking at on the northern side is the FIBS development and how they're going to introduce the commercial rentals on that end. And then all the way on the southern side, there's a Brooklyn Developmental Center, which is composed of 35 acres. It's state-owned land. 7 acres was given away. However, it's a city issue because it has city funding from HDC. So as a test case, we can use the financial influence in regards to that specific project, meaning Brooklyn Developmental Center, for the remainder 28 acres, although it is state-owned land, but there's city monies being invested in that area.
All right, I want to break this into pieces just really quick. I think one question, a very, very fair question, is commercial affordability. I think that's a really helpful one. So, Carl, I don't know if that's either or both of you, but I want to get to that question of how did we consider, and maybe Maria as well, how do we consider affordability in the commercial dynamics, meaning that local small businesses, places they could afford to locate, et cetera. The second part, I'm not familiar with the site. You're referring to what site?
The Brooklyn Developmental Center site. Is
that in your district?
No.
It's in
South,
Eastern, on the southern side.
Right.
Barron's.
You know about it?
I do.
Okay, why don't you speak to that, and then we'll speak to the bigger issue.
Let me just speak to the Brooklyn Development site, because as you said, that is a state site. It's a it's a state development site,
Right.
and they are in the beginning stages, as far as I know, of reconsidering and redeveloping that site.
Correct.
We will talk to them about affordability for commercial development there. I'm not familiar with the HDC funding, but we'll check on that as well. But at least we'll talk to the state, Empire State Development Corporation, about their plans and what can be done in terms of commercial affordability on that site.
Right, and the just another solution also is to try to keep the community board in the loop along the specific process on that particular end, because we seem to get tail end information.
Right. As you know, in that particular instance, it's not coming through a city process. It's going through a state process because the state, but we will, okay. Maybe Maria. Greg.
So as part of the rezoning, specifically for East New York, it was in the commitment, and my partners, HPD, for public developments, there will be commercial, ground floor commercial space that will be set aside for below market rent. So obviously, as buildings are going up and the commercial space are available, they will be open to small businesses at a different price point. However, I do also want to say that working with council and understanding the rent pressures, we have passed a commercial tenant harassment bill, which now protects commercial tenants against landlords who are trying to push them out. So we at SBS will provide additional legal services to also help those small businesses who are in a situation where they don't have a lease or they have a lease and a landlord is actually working against them to get them out. So certainly there's a number of programs, like the mayor has alluded to, that will protect commercial tenants.
Yes, and definitely keep the line of communication open with Community Board 5. It's imperative.
Thank you. Let's give the mayor and his team a round of applause. It is 10:15. It is 10:15, and I just really want to thank the mayor for all the work he's done to answer all of our questions here. Have a good night.